It was supposed to be another invisible mission. March 27, 1999. The skies over Yugoslavia were dark, heavy with clouds, and alive with tension. NATO's air campaign was in full force, and among the most feared weapons in the arsenal was a jet that, until that night, had been considered nearly untouchable. The F-117A Nighthawk, a stealth aircraft. A ghost in the sky, a machine designed to be seen by no one. And yet, on this night, everything would change.
At exactly 8:30 p.m., Lieutenant Colonel Daryl Zelko climbed into the cockpit of his F-117. This wasn't his first mission. He was experienced, calm, and confident in both his training and the aircraft beneath him. The Nighthawk had already proven itself in combat, slipping through enemy defenses with surgical precision. The mission was clear: strike a high-value target in Belgrade. Simple. Clean. Invisible. But war rarely follows the script. As Zelko's jet cut through the darkness, something unexpected happened. The weather began to shift. Thick cloud cover rolled in, disrupting visibility and communication. More critically, it affected the support aircraft flying with him. His escort point one by one, they were forced to turn back. Within minutes, Zelko found himself alone. No escorts. No backup. Just a single stealth jet flying deep into hostile territory. Still, he pressed on. Because that's what pilots do. Miles away, on the ground, a man was waiting. Lieutenant Colonel Zoltan Dani, a commander in the Yugoslav Air Defense Forces, was not facing NATO with cutting-edge technology. His equipment was outdated, decades-old Soviet-era radar systems that, on paper, had little chance of detecting a stealth aircraft. But Dani wasn't relying on the equipment alone. He relied on ingenuity. He had studied NATO patterns. He knew their routes, their timing, their habits. And more importantly, he had modified his radar systems, tweaking frequencies, shortening detection windows, and using brief pulses to avoid anti-radiation missiles. He turned on his P-18 radar, but only for seconds at a time. Just enough to see. Then off again. A cat-and-mouse game in the dark. At first, there was nothing. Then, a flicker. A small, almost imperceptible blip appeared on the screen. Dani leaned closer. This wasn't supposed to be possible. But it was there, and it was real. High above, Zelko approached his target. Everything was proceeding as planned. He prepared for the bombing run, opening the bomb bay doors, a necessary step, but one that came with a hidden cost. For a brief moment, the aircraft's stealth profile changed. The clean, radar-deflecting shape was broken, and that tiny change was all Dani needed. Back on the ground, the radar flickered again, stronger this time. Dani didn't hesitate. Target acquired. Within seconds, his missile battery was locked and ready. Point 2 surface-to-air missiles roared into the sky. Up above, Zelko had no warning. And no radar alert. No indication. Just darkness. Until suddenly, a flash. The first missile streak passed. Too close. Zelko's instincts kicked in instantly. He maneuvered, trying to evade. But before he could react further, the second missile struck. The explosion tore through the aircraft, shattering its control systems. Warning lights exploded across the cockpit. The jet was no longer responding. The invisible aircraft had been found, and now it was falling. Zelko had seconds to act. Training took over. He reached for the ejection handle and pulled. The canopy blasted away, and in an instant, he was ripped from the cockpit, hurled into the freezing night sky as the crippled F-117 spiraled down toward the earth. Below him, flames lit up the darkness. The unthinkable had happened. The world's most advanced stealth aircraft had been shot down. As Zelko descended under his parachute, the reality of his situation began to set in. He was alone, behind enemy lines, and somewhere below, search teams were already moving. He hit the ground hard, quickly releasing his parachute and moving to cover. Every second mattered. He knew the protocol: evade, hide, survive. The Serbian forces would be searching for him, and they would not be far behind. Zelko found a shallow ditch and pressed himself into the earth, trying to become invisible once again, but this time, without technology. Only instinct. Hours passed. The night was cold, silent, and unforgiving. Then came the sound. Dogs. Search dogs. They were close. Too close. Zelko stayed perfectly still, barely breathing. Every muscle in his body screamed to move, to run. But he didn't. He couldn't. The sound of barking grew louder, then closer, then right beside him. For a moment time froze. The dog sniffed the air, just meters away. Zelko didn't move. Didn't breathe. Didn't think. And somehow, the dog moved on. It was a moment that would define the thin line between life and death. But survival wasn't over. Not yet. Back in NATO command, the situation was unfolding rapidly. A stealth aircraft had gone down. A pilot was missing, and a rescue mission was already being prepared. Combat search and rescue teams were mobilized, racing against time. Because the longer Zelko stayed on the ground, the smaller his chances became. Hidden in the darkness, Zelko activated his survival radio. Carefully, cautiously, he began transmitting. Short bursts. Minimal exposure. He knew the enemy could be listening, but he had to take the risk. Hours passed as NATO forces triangulated his position. Finally, the signal was clear. They had him. Now came the most dangerous part. Extraction. Helicopters launched into the night, flying low, fast, and silent. Every second counted. Serbian forces were still searching, closing in on the crash site, and potentially on Zelko. As the helicopters approached, Zelko prepared his final signal. A flare. 0.1 chance to reveal his position. 0.1 chance to be seen. At exactly the right moment, he fired it into the sky. A bright streak of light cut through the darkness. The helicopters saw it, and they moved in. Within moments, the rescue team reached him. Hands grabbed him, pulling him aboard as the helicopters lifted off, disappearing back into the night just as Serbian forces arrived in the area. He was safe. Against all odds, he had survived. Back on the ground, the wreckage of the F-117 was quickly located by Serbian forces. Pieces of the once invincible aircraft were scattered across the countryside. Proof that stealth could be broken. Images of the wreckage would soon spread across the world, challenging the perception of technological invincibility. For Danny, it was a moment of triumph, not just for him, but for strategy, patience, and ingenuity. He hadn't defeated stealth with superior technology. He had done it with understanding. Years later, in 2011, something remarkable happened. The two men, once enemies on opposite sides of a battlefield, met face to face. Daryl Zelko and Zoltan Dani, not as adversaries, but as men who shared a moment in history. They spoke not of victory or defeat, but of respect. Respect for skill, respect for survival, respect for the thin line that separates life and death in war. The shoot-down of the F-117 wasn't just a military event. It was a reminder that no system is perfect, that even the most advanced technology has vulnerabilities, and that sometimes the outcome of history is decided not by machines, but by the people behind them. On that night in March 1999, the invisible became visible. The untouchable was touched, and a story was written that would never be forgotten.